My name is Beatrice, and I am a mother. I never thought I would start my story with shame in my chest and tears on my phone screen. But that is how this story begins. Before I tell you everything, please pause for a second. If you love deep, emotional stories about family, betrayal, and unexpected strength, kindly subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story like this. Also, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I read every comment, and I want to know who is here with me. Now listen carefully. The message came at 6:42 a.m. I was sitting at the small wooden table in my kitchen, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold. My knees ached like always. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that reminds you that everyone you once lived for has moved on. My phone buzzed. I smiled at first. Because when a mother sees her child's name on her phone, her heart still jumps, no matter how old she is. No matter how much pain that child has caused her before. I wiped my hands on my dress and opened the message. What I read next broke something inside me. It said, "Don't expect me to care for you when you're old. I have my own life and family now." I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, slowly, like maybe I had read it wrong. But the words did not change. My hands started shaking. The phone almost slipped from my fingers. My chest felt tight, like someone was pressing a heavy stone against it. This was my son. The child I carried for 9 months. The boy I stayed awake for when he had fever. The young man I worked 2 jobs for so he could go to school. And now, this. I stood up so fast that the chair fell behind me. The noise echoed through the empty house, but no one came running. No one ever does anymore. I whispered, "Why?" Even though no one was there to answer. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call him and ask what I did wrong. But instead, I sat back down. And that was the moment I made a decision. A decision he never saw coming. But before I tell you about that decision, you need to understand how we got here. Let me take you back. I raised my son alone. His father left when he was still very small. One day he packed his clothes, said he needed space, and never came back. I became mother and father in one body. I worked as a cleaner in the morning and sold food in the evening. Some nights, I slept hungry so my son could eat. I never complained. When he was little, he used to hold my hand and say, "Mama, when I grow up, I will buy you a big house." I believed him. When he got older, life became harder. School fees, rent, food, everything depended on me. I sold my jewelry. I sold my wedding ring. I even sold the small land my parents left me. All for him. When he finished school and got a good job, I was proud. So proud. I told everyone, "That is my son." Then he got married. At first I was happy. I welcomed his wife with open arms. I tried my best to be kind, to give space, to not interfere. But slowly, things changed. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rare. Messages went unanswered for days. Whenever I asked if I had done something wrong, he would say, "I'm busy, Mom." Busy. That word became a wall between us. Last month, my doctor told me something that scared me. He said my health was not as strong as before. He said I needed rest, care, and support. That night, I prayed. I didn't pray for money. I didn't pray for a big house. I prayed that my son would still be there for me. So I sent him a message. A simple one. I wrote, "Son, I am not as strong as before. I just want to know that I won't be alone when I get older." I waited. And waited. Then this morning, his reply came. That message. Cold. Sharp. Final. I felt like I had been pushed out of his life with just one sentence. I wanted to reply. Oh, I wanted to say so many things. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up, walked into my bedroom, and opened a drawer I had not touched in years. Inside were documents. Papers I kept safe. Secrets I never talked about. Choices I made quietly, thinking they would protect him one day. I held those papers in my hands, and for the first time, I asked myself a question I had never dared to ask before. What about me? What about my old age? What about my pain? What about my sacrifices? My phone buzzed again. Another message from him. I looked at the screen, my heart beating fast. I did not open it yet, because I knew whatever was coming next would change everything. I stared at my phone for a long time before I finally opened the second message. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The message said, "Mom, please don't make this a big issue. I already have too much responsibility. I can't add you to it." That was all. No greeting. No care. No love. Just responsibility. I placed the phone face down on the table, as if looking at it any longer would burn my eyes. My hands were cold, even though the morning sun was already coming through the window. I sat there, silent. Then something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not hatred. Something quieter. Something heavier. I remembered a day from many years ago. My son was about 7 years old. He had fallen sick in the middle of the night. His body was burning with fever. I carried him on my back and walked almost an hour to the nearest clinic because I had no money for transport. My legs were shaking, but I did not stop. I kept whispering to him, "Mama is here. I will not leave you." That night, I promised myself something. I promised that no matter what happened, my child would never feel alone. And now, here I was, alone. I stood up slowly and went to the window. Outside, people were walking to work. Cars passed. Life was moving forward, as if my heart had not just cracked open. I whispered, "So this is how it ends." But it did not end there. I turned back to the drawer I had opened earlier. The one with the papers. I pulled everything out and spread them on the bed. There were old documents. Letters, receipts, and one envelope, sealed and yellow with age. I sat on the bed and picked them up one by one. The first document was the house deed. The small house I lived in. This house was not always mine. Years ago, when my son was still in school, I had taken a loan using this house as security. I needed money for his education. The agreement was clear. If I failed to pay, I would lose the house. I worked like my life depended on it. Because it did. I paid every last amount. But I never told him. The second document was a savings account statement. A quiet account. One I started many years ago. Every time I earned a little extra money, I put some aside. Even when it meant skipping meals. Even when my shoes had holes. That money was meant for one reason. My old age. In case my son could not help me. In case life turned its back on me. I never imagined I would need it so soon. Then I picked up the envelope. My hands trembled. Inside was a letter I wrote to myself years ago. I opened it and began to read. It said, "If you are reading this, it means you are afraid. It means you are wondering if you mattered. Remember this. You gave everything. Do not beg for love. Choose yourself if you must." Tears rolled down my face. I had forgotten that letter. But now, it felt like my past self was speaking directly to me. I folded the letter and placed it back carefully. Then I made a choice. But before I acted on it, I needed answers. I picked up my phone and called my son. It rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. He did not pick up. I tried again. This time, he answered. "Mom," he said, sounding tired. "Yes," I replied softly. "It's me." There was a pause. "What is it?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "I read your messages." Another pause. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said quickly. "I just wanted to be honest." "Honest?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. I have my own family now. My wife, my children. I can't carry everyone. I closed my eyes. Did I carry you alone? I asked. He sighed. Mom, please. Don't do this. Answer me, I said, my voice shaking. When I had nothing, did I say you were a burden? Silence. Then he said, that was different. Different. I felt something snap inside me. How was it different? I asked. You chose to have me, he replied. I didn't choose this. Those words hit me harder than any slap. I said nothing for a moment. Then I spoke, very calmly. You're right, I said. You didn't choose this. He sounded relieved. I'm glad you understand. I do, I continued. And I will respect your choice. Good, he said. That's all I wanted. I ended the call. Just like that. I did not cry. I did not shout. I stood up and walked into the kitchen. I made myself breakfast for the first time in weeks. I ate slowly. Then I cleaned the house. I washed my clothes. I did all the small things I had been neglecting. Because something inside me had changed. That afternoon, I dressed up and went out. I had not been out in days. The sun felt warm on my skin. The air smelled fresh. I walked with purpose. My first stop was the bank. I sat across from the woman at the desk and told her I wanted to review my account. She looked at the numbers and raised her eyebrows. You've been very disciplined, she said. I nodded. Yes, I replied. I have. Then I said the words that surprised even me. I want to make changes. She looked at me carefully. Are you sure? Yes, I said. Very sure. After that, I went to another office. A quiet place. The kind of place where decisions are written down and made final. I sat across from a man who spoke gently and listened carefully. He asked me many questions. I answered all of them. When I left that office, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From certainty. That evening, my phone buzzed again. A message from my son. It said, Mom, I hope you're okay. I didn't mean to sound harsh. I stared at the message. Then I typed a reply. Just one sentence. Don't worry. I've taken care of everything. I sent it. Almost immediately, 3 dots appeared. He was typing. I watched the screen. Waiting. Because the next thing he would say would prove whether he truly understood what he had done. The 3 dots disappeared. Then they came back. Then they disappeared again. I stared at my phone like it might speak on its own. My heart was calm, but my hands were not. They rested on my lap, fingers locked together tightly. Finally, his reply came. What do you mean you've taken care of everything? I read it twice. I did not answer. Not yet. I placed the phone beside me and leaned back in my chair. The house felt different now. Not empty. Not heavy. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. I thought about all the times I had rushed to reply to him. All the times I had worried if my words sounded too demanding. All the times I had apologized when I did nothing wrong. Not today. Today, I needed him to sit with that question. What did I mean? I stood up and walked into my bedroom again. The documents were still spread out on the bed. I gathered them carefully and placed them back into the drawer, except for one folder. The folder I had signed earlier that day. I sat down and opened it again, slowly, as if reading it would make it more real. It was real. Very real. My name was there. My signature was there. My decision was there. I closed the folder and held it against my chest. Then the memories came. Not the painful ones first. The good ones. I remembered the day my son got his first job. He had run into the house, smiling so wide his eyes almost closed. He lifted me off the ground and said, "Mama, we made it." We. I remembered the day he introduced me to his wife. I cooked all day, cleaned all night. I wanted her to feel welcome. I wanted her to know she was gaining a family, not just a husband. I remembered holding my first grandchild. I cried that day. I thought, this is it. This is the reward for all those hard years. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible. I was no longer Mama. I was Mom, not now. I was, we'll talk later. I was, I'll call you back. And now, I was a responsibility he did not want. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Mom. I exhaled slowly. Then I replied. I mean exactly what I said. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Then the phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was him. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered. Yes. I said. Mom, you're worrying me, he said. What's going on? I'm fine, I replied. That's not what it sounds like, he said. You don't usually talk like this. I'm learning, I said calmly. There was silence on the line. Then he laughed softly. Mom, please. You're overthinking everything. I closed my eyes. Do you remember the night I carried you to the clinic? I asked. What? He said, confused. The night you had a fever, I continued. I walked with you on my back for almost an hour. He sighed. Why are you bringing that up now? Because I never once thought of you as a burden, I said. Not even for a second. That was your duty, he replied. You were my mother. The words stung. Yes, I said. And now I am still your mother. But things change, he said quickly. I have kids now. A wife. Bills. Pressure. I understand, I said. You do? He asked. Yes, I replied. That's why I won't pressure you anymore. He sounded relieved again. Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. We are, I said softly. More than you know. He paused. So, what exactly did you take care of? I looked at the folder on the table. I planned my future, I said. What does that mean? He asked. It means you don't have to worry about me, I replied. That's good, he said quickly. That's really good. I smiled. But he could not see it. That also means, I added, that I won't be depending on you for anything. There was a small pause. Okay, he said slowly. That's fine. And it also means, I continued, that I've started putting things in order. Things? He asked. Yes, I said. Everything. He laughed again, uneasy this time. Mom, you're scaring me a little. Don't be scared, I replied. You wanted honesty. This is it. Another silence. Then he said, Are you sick? No, I answered. Are you angry? He asked. No, I said again. Then what is this? He asked. This, I said carefully, is me choosing peace. He did not respond. I ended the call. That night, I did something I had not done in years. I slept well. No tossing. No turning. No worrying. The next morning, I woke up early and dressed neatly. I tied my scarf carefully and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked older. But I also looked stronger. I left the house and went to visit someone I had not seen in a long time. An old friend. She listened quietly as I told her everything. When I finished, she reached across the table and held my hand. You did the right thing, she said. I hope so, I replied. You raised him well, she continued. What he does with that is his choice. I nodded. On my way home, I stopped by a small shop and bought something special. Not expensive. Just meaningful. When I got home, my phone was full of missed calls. 5. All from him. There was also a message. Mom, please call me back. I don't like how this feels. I stared at the screen. For the first time, the fear had shifted. It was no longer mine. I typed a short reply. I'm busy today. We'll talk later. I sent it. Then I placed my phone down and walked into my bedroom. I opened the drawer again and took out the folder. I flipped to the last page. The page that explained everything. The page that would change how my son saw me forever. I traced my finger over the words. And I whispered to myself, "You chose this." Just then, there was a knock on my door. A loud one. Urgent. My heart skipped. I walked slowly toward the door. Because I already knew who it was. And I also knew. He was not ready for what I was about to tell him. The knocking came again. Louder this time. Sharp. Fast. Almost angry. My heart beat hard, but my feet did not rush. I walked slowly toward the door, one step at a time, like someone who had already made peace with what was coming. When I opened it, there he was. My son. Standing on my doorstep. His face looked tired. His eyes were wide, searching my face like he was looking for something he had lost. "Mom," he said quickly. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" I stepped aside. "Come in." He walked past me into the living room, looking around like he was seeing the place for the first time. The house was clean. Quiet. Exactly the way I always kept it. He turned to me. "What's going on? You're acting strange." "I'm not acting," I replied. "I'm living." He frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," I said. He sat down on the couch, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. "You scared me," he said. "Your messages. The way you talk now. It's not you." I sat across from him. "This is me," I said calmly. "You just haven't noticed before." He rubbed his hands together. "Did someone tell you something? Did someone put ideas in your head?" I shook my head. "No one did." "Then why does it feel like you're pushing me away?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment. "I didn't push you away," I said softly. "You stepped back. I just stopped chasing." He looked down at the floor. "That's not fair," he muttered. I let the silence sit between us. Finally, he looked up. "What did you do yesterday?" "I went out," I replied. "Where?" he asked. "To take care of my future," I said. His jaw tightened. "You keep saying that." "Yes," I said. "Because it's important." He stood up and started pacing. "Mom, if this is about money, you don't have to worry. I can help when I can." I raised my hand gently. "Please don't promise what you already said you can't give." He stopped pacing. "That was taken out of context," he said quickly. "I didn't mean I'd abandon you." I met his eyes. "Your words were clear." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I stood up and walked to the drawer in my bedroom. I brought out the folder and returned to the living room. "What's that?" he asked. "My piece," I replied. I placed the folder on the table between us. He stared at it like it might explode. "You went to a lawyer, didn't you?" he asked suddenly. I nodded. "Yes." His face changed. "Why would you do that?" he asked, his voice rising. "Do you think I'm trying to cheat you?" "No," I said. "I think you're trying to live your life. And I'm doing the same." He ran his hands through his hair. "Mom, this is too much." "For you," I said. "Not for me." He sat back down heavily. "What did you sign?" I did not answer immediately. Instead, I asked him a question. "Do you remember the savings I told you about years ago?" I asked. "The one you said was for emergencies," he replied. "Yes," I said. He nodded. "Yes. I added to it for decades," I continued. Quietly. He swallowed. "Okay. And do you remember the land your grandparents left me?" I asked. "Yes," he said slowly. "You sold it." "I did," I said. To pay your school fees. He looked away. I never asked for anything in return, I said. Not gratitude. Not praise. I know, he said softly. But I did expect one thing, I continued. That when I became weak, I wouldn't be treated like a problem. He stood up again. Mom, I said I didn't mean it like that. But you did, I replied. Because that's how you see it. He clenched his fists. So what now? You're cutting me off. I shook my head. No. Then what? He asked. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents. He leaned forward, trying to read. What is this? He asked. This, I said, is a plan. For what? He asked. For my care, I replied. For my health. For my future. His eyes widened slightly. You're moving. Not yet, I said. Then what? He pressed. I've arranged for professional care when I need it, I explained. I've secured my finances. I've written instructions. He stared at me. You did all this without telling me? Yes, I said. Why? He asked. Because when I asked for reassurance, you gave me rejection, I replied. He shook his head. This feels like punishment. It's not, I said. It's preparation. He sat down slowly. So you don't need me anymore, he said quietly. I felt a small ache in my chest. I will always need my son, I said. But I will not beg him. He looked at me, his eyes glossy. You're making me feel like a bad person. I sighed. I didn't write that message. You did. He opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. I didn't think you'd take it this far, he said. I didn't think you'd say it at all, I replied. We sat in silence. Then he asked, what else is in that folder? I closed it gently. Things you don't need to worry about, I said. That's not fair, he snapped. I'm your son. Yes, I said. And I'm your mother. Not your burden. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Then back at me. My wife is calling, he said. I nodded. Answer it. He hesitated, then stepped outside. I stayed seated, listening to the muffled sound of his voice through the door. He sounded tense, defensive, worried. When he came back inside, his face was pale. She wants to know what's going on, he said. You can tell her the truth, I replied. He stared at me. You're serious about all this, aren't you? Yes, I said firmly. He sat down again, rubbing his forehead. What if I want to help now? He asked quietly. I looked at him carefully. Is that because you want to? I asked. Or because you're afraid of what you might lose? He did not answer. Instead, he looked at the folder again. Then he said something that made my heart drop. Mom, did you change your will? I met his eyes. And for the first time since he arrived, I did not soften my voice. I made sure my future is protected, I said. He swallowed hard. Because in that moment, he realized something very important. Whatever I had decided, it was already done. And it was not in his control anymore. The room felt smaller after that question. Mom, did you change your will? The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I did not answer him right away. Instead, I stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. The sky was turning orange and purple, like it was trying to calm the world before night came. Behind me, my son shifted on the couch. Mom, he said again, softer this time. I turned back to face him. I didn't do anything out of anger, I said. I did everything out of clarity. His eyes followed me closely as I sat back down. So that's a yes, he said quietly. I reviewed everything, I replied carefully. I made sure my wishes are clear. He leaned forward. Why wouldn't you talk to me first? I let out a slow breath. Because when I talk to you about my fears, I said. You told me not to expect anything. He rubbed his face with his hands. I didn't think it would lead to this. That's the problem, I said gently. You didn't think. He looked up at me, his eyes full of confusion and something else. Fear. What exactly did you change? He asked. I shook my head. You don't need the details. I do, he insisted. I'm your only child. Yes, I said. And I raised you to stand on your own. He laughed nervously. Mom, this feels like you're cutting me out. I'm cutting out uncertainty, I replied. He stood up again and started pacing. So what now? He asked. You don't want my help? You don't want my support? I want honesty, I said. I want peace. I was honest, he said quickly. Yes, I replied. And so am I. He stopped pacing and faced me. Do you know how this looks? He asked. Like you don't trust me. I met his gaze. Trust is built on actions, not words. He clenched his jaw. I've never abandoned you. I tilted my head slightly. You were ready to. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Silence filled the room. Then he said something unexpected. What if I take back what I said? I looked at him carefully. What do you mean? I asked. What if I say I'll be there for you? He continued. What if I promise now? I felt a tightness in my chest. Promises made out of fear don't last, I said softly. That's not fair, he snapped. People change. Yes, I replied. They do. And so do their choices. He sank back onto the couch. I feel like I'm losing you, he said quietly. I sat beside him. You lost me the moment you stopped seeing me as your mother, I said, and started seeing me as a problem. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean it like that, he whispered. I know, I said. But meaning and impact are not the same. He wiped his face quickly, embarrassed. I didn't know you were this serious, he said. I didn't know you were this distant, I replied. We sat there for a long time without speaking. Then he asked, what happens if something happens to you? I looked at him. I've made arrangements, I said. Medical, financial, everything. And me? He asked. Where do I fit in? I thought about that. You fit in as my son, I said. Not as my caretaker. Not as my insurance. He nodded slowly. That hurts, he admitted. I know, I said. It hurt me too. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it this time. Mom, he said, do you still love me? The question caught me off guard. I reached out and held his hand. Every day, I said. That will never change. Then why does this feel like goodbye? He asked. Because you're not used to me choosing myself, I replied. He let out a shaky breath. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You don't have to fix anything, I said. You just have to understand. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't fully understand yet. Then he said something that made my heart skip. What if I need you one day? I looked at him closely. I will always be your mother, I said. But I will not save you from the consequences of your own words. He stood up slowly. I think I should go, he said. I nodded. That might be best. He walked to the door, then stopped. Mom, he said without turning around. Are you really okay? I smiled softly. For the first time in a long time, I said, yes. He opened the door and stepped outside. Before he left, he turned back and said, I didn't expect this. I met his eyes. Neither did I replied. The door closed behind him. The house was quiet again. But this time, it did not feel empty. I walked back to my bedroom and opened the drawer one more time. I took out the folder and flipped through the pages. At the very end was a clause. One simple sentence. A sentence that would change everything if it ever came to light. I touched it gently and whispered, "You made your choice." Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it, and my breath caught in my throat, because the message said something that told me this story was far from over, and whatever was coming next would shake my family in ways I never imagined. I stared at the message from the unknown number for a long time. My heart was beating slowly now, not fast like before. It was the kind of beat that comes when you sense trouble, but you are no longer afraid of it. The message read, "Good evening, ma'am. This is regarding the arrangements you made yesterday. Please call me as soon as possible." No name. No explanation. Just that. I locked my phone and placed it on the bed beside me. I did not call back immediately. Instead, I sat down and tried to breathe. The house was quiet, but my mind was not. Thoughts moved in circles, touching old memories, then jumping forward to things I had never imagined I would have to face. I asked myself a simple question. Am I ready for what comes next? The answer surprised me. Yes. I had spent most of my life preparing for other people's futures. My son's future. His comfort. His success. His safety. This time, I had prepared for mine. Still, that message meant something had shifted. Something was moving faster than I expected. I picked up my phone and called the number. It rang once. Then a voice answered. "Good evening, ma'am," the man said politely. "Thank you for calling back." "Yes," I replied. "You sent me a message." "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I wanted to confirm a few things with you directly." "Go on," I said. "There has been an inquiry," he continued carefully, "about the documents you signed. Someone contacted our office today." My stomach tightened. "Who?" I asked. There was a short pause. "Your son," he said. I closed my eyes. "Of course." "I see," I said calmly. "He had questions," the man continued. "We did not share any information, of course. But I felt it was important to let you know." "Thank you," I replied. "I appreciate that." "There is nothing to worry about," he added quickly. "Everything is in order." "I know," I said. After the call ended, I sat there quietly. So he had gone looking for answers. Not to ask me, but to ask someone else. That told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, I woke up early again. Sleep came easily these days. That alone felt like a miracle. I made breakfast and ate slowly, enjoying each bite. Then I cleaned the house, humming softly as I worked. I noticed small things I had ignored before, a crack in the wall, a loose handle, dust on the shelf. I fixed what I could. Because this house was mine. Later that morning, my phone rang. It was my son. I watched it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. I answered. "Mom," he said quickly. "Why didn't you tell me you went that far?" I leaned back in my chair. "Good morning to you too." "This isn't funny," he said. "I tried to get information, and they wouldn't tell me anything." "They shouldn't," I replied. "Why are you shutting me out?" he asked. "I'm not," I said. "I'm setting boundaries." "Boundaries?" he repeated, almost laughing. "You're my mother." "Yes," I said. "And I'm also a person." He sighed loudly. "I don't understand why you're doing this." "I told you," I replied. "Because I listened to you." "That's not what I meant," he said. "But it's what you said," I answered. There was silence on the line. Then he asked, "Are you planning to leave?" I frowned slightly. "Leave where?" "Your house," he said. "Your city. Your life." "I'm planning to live," I replied. "Wherever that makes sense." "That scares me," he admitted. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Good." "What?" he asked. "It means you're finally paying attention," I said. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My wife is upset." "I'm sure she is," I replied calmly. "She thinks you're doing this to punish us," he continued. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "I'm doing something for myself." "She's worried about the future," he added. "So was I replied. "That's why we're here." He exhaled sharply. "Mom, families don't work like this." "They do when one person carries everything alone for too long," I said. Another silence. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. "She thinks you don't trust her." I closed my eyes. "This is not about her," I said slowly. "It's about you and me." "But she's my family now," he said. "And I am still your mother," I replied. "Those two things should not be enemies." He didn't respond. That afternoon, I went out again. I walked farther than I usually did, letting the sun warm my skin. I passed people laughing, talking, living. I realized how small my world had become without me noticing. I stopped at a bench and sat down. For the first time, I imagined a future that did not revolve around waiting for phone calls. That evening, there was another knock on my door. This time, I was not surprised. When I opened it, my son was standing there again. But he was not alone. His wife stood beside him. Her arms were crossed. Her face was tight. "Mom," my son said, "we need to talk." I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. They walked into the living room together. She did not sit. She remained standing, like she was ready to leave at any moment. "I hope you don't mind," my son said, "but I brought her." "I don't mind," I replied. "This concerns all of us." She finally spoke. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said. Her voice was controlled, but sharp. "We're family." I looked at her calmly. "Family does not mean silence," I said. "It does not mean fear." She frowned. "Are you saying we're afraid of you?" "No," I replied. "I'm saying I was afraid of being alone." My son shifted uncomfortably. She looked at him, then back at me. "We have our own responsibilities," she said. "You can't expect." "I don't expect anything," I interrupted gently. "That's the point." She blinked. "I made plans so no one would feel trapped," I continued. "Including you." My son looked at me sharply. "Then why does it feel like we're losing something?" I met his eyes. "Because you are," I said. "What?" he asked. "Control," I replied. The room went quiet. His wife's eyes widened slightly. I stood up. "I love you both," I said. "But my life does not belong to anyone else anymore." My son opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Because in that moment, he realized something painful. This was no longer a conversation he could steer. And whatever decision I had made, it was already shaping a future he could not undo. The silence in the room was thick. My son looked from me to his wife, then back at me again, like he was trying to find the right words, but none of them felt safe. His wife was the first to break it. "So what exactly are you saying?" she asked, her voice tight. "That you don't want us involved in your life anymore?" I shook my head slowly. "That is not what I said." "Then explain it," she replied. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you've shut us out." I folded my hands in my lap. "I didn't shut you out. I stopped leaving the door open when no one wanted to walk in." My son sighed heavily. "Mom, please. This is getting out of hand." "Is it?" I asked calmly. "Or is it just uncomfortable?" He didn't answer. His wife shifted her weight and finally sat down on the edge of the chair. "We are not bad people," she said. "We're just trying to survive." "So was I replied. She looked surprised by that. "For years," I continued, "I survived quietly. I survived by not asking, by not complaining, by pretending I didn't need anything." My son rubbed his forehead. Why didn't you tell us it was this bad? I tried, I said. I asked for reassurance. I asked for comfort. He flinched. And I got a message instead, I added. His wife glanced at him sharply. What message? He looked away. I watched her face change as she realized there was more she didn't know. What message? She asked again, firmer this time. He hesitated. I was just being honest. I reached for my phone and unlocked it. I don't believe in half-truths, I said. So let's be clear. I turned the screen toward her. She read the message slowly. Her lips parted. Then she read it again. When she looked up, her eyes were no longer sharp. They were uncertain. You said this? She asked him quietly. He swallowed. I didn't mean it like that. But you said it, she replied. The room felt different now. He looked at me. Why would you show her that? Because this is not a private problem, I said. It's a family one. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the floor. I didn't know, she said softly. I didn't want to cause trouble, I replied. That's why I stayed quiet for so long. My son stood up suddenly. Okay. Enough. Let's talk solutions. I looked at him. I already did. No, he said. I mean real solutions. We can help. We can figure something out. I tilted my head. Now. Yes, he said quickly. Now. I studied his face. Why now? I asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His wife spoke instead. Because this affects all of us. I nodded. Exactly. She looked at me carefully. Are you planning to leave us out of everything? No, I said. I'm planning to stop centering my life around fear. My son clenched his fists. You're acting like we abandoned you. You emotionally did, I replied gently. He looked away. I didn't think words mattered that much, he muttered. They always do, I said. There was a long pause. Then his wife asked a question that surprised me. What happens if you get sick? She asked. I have care arranged, I replied. And if it's serious? She continued. I still have care arranged, I said. And choices. She nodded slowly. And if you need family? She asked. I looked at her. Family shows up before it's too late, I said. She looked down. My son finally sat back down, looking smaller than before. So what are we to you now? He asked quietly. I felt a small ache in my chest. You are my son, I said. And you are my daughter-in-law. That will never change. But, he asked. But I am no longer living my life waiting to be chosen, I replied. He breathed out slowly. I feel like I'm losing control, he admitted. I nodded. I felt that way for years. His wife looked up at me. Is there anything we can do? I thought about that question carefully. Yes, I said. They both leaned forward. You can listen, I continued. Without defending. Without explaining. Without fixing. My son nodded slowly. And? His wife asked. And you can accept that some doors close quietly, I said. Not to punish anyone, but to protect what's left inside. My son swallowed hard. Does that mean you're done with us? No, I replied. It means I'm done sacrificing myself to feel included. Silence filled the room again. Then his wife stood up. I need some air, she said. I understand, I replied. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for not seeing this sooner. I nodded. Thank you. She stepped outside. My son remained seated. Mom, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think I could hurt you like this. I didn't think you would either, I replied. He looked at me, eyes wet. Is it too late? The question hung between us. I did not answer right away. Instead, I stood up and walked to the drawer in my bedroom once more. I brought back the folder and placed it on the table. "This," I said, "is why timing matters." He stared at it. "What's in there that scares you so much?" he asked. I met his eyes. "Not fear," I said. "Finality." His breath caught. "What did you do?" he asked. I placed my hand on the folder but did not open it. "You'll understand soon," I said. Just then, his wife knocked softly and stepped back inside. "We need to go," she said. My son stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving the folder. "We'll talk again," he said. "Yes," I replied. "We will." They walked to the door together. Before leaving, my son turned back one last time. "Mom," he said, "please don't shut me out completely." I looked at him with steady eyes. "That depends on what you do next," I said. The door closed behind them. I stood alone in the living room, listening to their footsteps fade. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. This time, it was from the same unknown number. I opened it. And my heart skipped. Because the message said, "Ma'am, there has been a change. We need to meet immediately." I stared at the screen. Because whatever that change was, it meant the decision I made was about to come into the open. And once it did, there would be no turning back. I read the message again. And again. "Ma'am, there has been a change. We need to meet immediately." My fingers tightened around the phone. A change. That word can mean many things. Some good. Some bad. Some that turn your whole world upside down without warning. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. For the first time since all of this began, a small wave of fear washed over me. Not panic. Not regret. Just the quiet understanding that whatever I had set in motion was now moving on its own. I typed back. "When?" The reply came almost instantly. "As soon as possible. Tomorrow morning." I stared at the screen, then locked my phone and placed it beside me. Tomorrow. I lay back on the bed and looked at the ceiling. The fan turned slowly above my head, making a soft sound that reminded me of how many nights I had spent awake, worrying about my son's future. Now, I was worrying about mine. But it felt different. This time, I was not alone inside my own thoughts. I got up and made myself dinner. Something simple. Rice and soup. As I ate, I realized my hands were steady. My appetite was still there. That told me something important. I was stronger than I thought. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from my son. "Mom, are you okay?" I stared at it for a long moment. Then I replied, "Yes, I am." A few seconds passed. "Can we talk?" he asked. I looked at the time. Then I typed back, "Not tonight." There was no reply after that. I slept deeply. No dreams. No restlessness. Just sleep. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I dressed carefully, choosing my clothes with intention. Not to impress anyone, but to remind myself that I mattered. When I stepped outside, the air felt cool and fresh. I took a deep breath and walked to the bus stop, my bag held firmly at my side. At the office, the man greeted me politely and invited me to sit. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said. "You said there was a change," I replied. "Yes," he said carefully. "There has been a development." My heart beat once, hard. "What kind of development?" I asked. He folded his hands on the desk. "Someone submitted a formal request." I already knew the answer. "My son," I said. "Yes," he confirmed. I nodded slowly. "Go on." "He is concerned," the man continued, "about the decisions you've made. He believes they were made under emotional distress." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Of course he does." The man raised his eyebrows slightly but said nothing. He wants to challenge them, he continued. There it was. The words I had been expecting, but still felt heavy hearing out loud. On what grounds? I asked calmly. On the grounds that you may not have fully understood the long-term impact, he replied. I leaned back in my chair. Did he say that to you? I asked. Yes, the man said. Indirectly. I nodded. And what did you say? I said, the man replied carefully, that you were clear, composed, and fully aware when you signed everything. Good. But, he added, this does mean things may become complicated. I looked at him steadily. I've lived a complicated life. He gave a small smile. Then you understand. I sat quietly for a moment. Is there anything I need to do? I asked. Yes, he said. You need to decide how far you want to take this. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? You can revise, he explained. You can soften certain clauses. Or you can stand firm. I thought about my son's face. His confusion. His fear. His sudden interest. I thought about the message he sent me. The one that started all of this. Then I shook my head. I stand firm, I said. The man nodded. Very well. He slid a document across the desk. There is one more thing, he said. I looked down at the paper. My breath caught. What is this? I asked. It's a notice, he replied. If this proceeds, your son will be formally informed. Informed of what? I asked, even though I already knew. Of the full scope of your decision, he said. I closed my eyes briefly. So far, he had only guessed. Soon he would know. All of it? I asked. Yes, the man said. Everything. I signed the paper. My hand did not shake. When I left the office, the sun was high in the sky. I walked slowly, letting the weight of what I had done settle into my bones. That afternoon, my phone rang again. It was my son. I answered. Mom, he said quickly. Did you go somewhere today? Yes, I replied. Where? He asked. I took care of something, I said. His breathing changed. Are you doing this to hurt me? He asked. I closed my eyes. No, I said. I'm doing this so I don't disappear. There was silence. Then he said, people are asking questions. I know, I replied. Why won't you just talk to me? He asked, his voice breaking. I am talking to you, I said. You just don't like what you're hearing. He swallowed. Mom, please. That word. Please. It sounded different now. Tomorrow, I said quietly. Everything will be clear. What does that mean? He asked urgently. It means, I replied, you'll finally understand what it costs to say what you said. He didn't answer. I ended the call. That evening, I sat alone in my living room, the folder open on the table. I read every page again. Every clause. Every sentence. I made sure there were no doubts left in my heart. Then I closed the folder and placed it back in the drawer. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A message from my son. Mom, I'm scared. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. So was I. I turned off my phone. Because tomorrow was coming. And when it arrived, the truth I had been protecting would no longer be mine alone. It would belong to all of us. The morning came quietly. No thunder. No warning. Just light slipping through my curtains like it always had. But nothing felt the same. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, my feet resting on the cold floor, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood waking up. Somewhere, a child laughed. A radio played softly. Life was moving forward, unaware that something important was about to be revealed. I dressed slowly and carefully, my hands steady. I was not afraid. I was ready. My phone buzzed while I was tying my scarf. A message from my son. Mom, please. Before anything happens today, let me explain. I read it once. Then I placed the phone face down. Some explanations come too late. By the time I arrived at the office, my son was already there. So was his wife. They sat together in the waiting area, stiff and silent. When my son saw me, he stood up so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Mom," he said, rushing toward me. "Thank God you're here." I nodded. I was always coming. His wife looked at me carefully, like she was seeing me for the first time. Her face was pale. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself. We were called inside. The room was quiet and formal. Papers were neatly stacked on the table. The man who had been guiding me through this process greeted us politely and asked everyone to sit. No one spoke at first. Then my son leaned forward. "Mom," he said, his voice tight, "why are we here?" I looked at him calmly. "Because you asked questions." He swallowed. I was worried. "I know," I replied. The man cleared his throat. "We're here to clarify the decisions that were made and to ensure everyone understands them fully." My son nodded quickly. "Yes. That's all I want. Understanding." The man turned to me. "Are you comfortable proceeding?" "Yes," I said. My son's wife shifted in her seat. The man opened a folder. "As you know," he began, "arrangements were made regarding future care, finances, and inheritance." My son stiffened at that last word. "Inheritance?" he asked. I did not look at him. "Yes," the man continued. "These arrangements were made independently and legally." My son turned to me. "Mom, why didn't you talk to me first?" I met his eyes. I tried to. He looked down. The man continued reading. "The property currently occupied by the client." My son's head snapped up. "Wait," he said. "The house?" "Yes," the man replied calmly. "The house has been placed into a protected trust." My son frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," the man explained, "that the property cannot be sold, transferred, or claimed by anyone else." My son's breathing quickened. "Anyone else?" "Yes," the man said. "Including family." My son turned to me, his eyes wide. "Why would you do that?" "So I would never be pressured," I replied quietly. "So I would never be afraid." His wife's lips parted slightly. The man continued. "Funds have been allocated for long-term care, medical needs, and living expenses." My son nodded slowly. "Okay. That makes sense." "And," the man added, "certain beneficiaries have been reassigned." The room went still. My son leaned forward. "Reassigned how?" The man looked at me. "Would you like me to continue?" "Yes," I said. He nodded and read on. "The client has chosen to prioritize guaranteed care and independence over traditional inheritance distribution." My son's face drained of color. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," the man said gently, "that assets previously assumed to pass directly to family will instead be used to secure the client's future." My son shook his head. "No, that's not." "It is," I said softly. His wife placed a hand on his arm. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "are you saying there will be nothing left?" I looked at him for a long moment. "I am saying," I replied, "that my life is not a reward to be collected after I'm gone." Tears filled his eyes. "That's not fair," he whispered. I leaned forward. "What wasn't fair," I said gently, "was being told not to expect care when I was old." The words landed hard. His wife covered her mouth. The man continued, his voice steady. "There is one final clause." My son looked up sharply. "What clause?" The man paused. "In the event that family members attempt to override or contest these arrangements, access to certain information will be restricted permanently." My son's head spun toward me. "You planned for that too?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Because I know you." He looked like he had been struck. I wasn't trying to hurt you, he said, tears spilling now. I was scared. I felt trapped. So did I replied. For years. His wife finally spoke. We didn't think it would go this far, she said quietly. I didn't either, I replied. Until I read that message. Silence filled the room. The man closed the folder. These decisions are final, he said. Unless the client chooses otherwise. All eyes turned to me. My son stood up slowly and walked toward me. Mom, he said, his voice shaking. Please. Let me fix this. I looked up at him. Fix what? I asked. My mistake, he said. My words. My fear. I stood up as well. You can't fix the past, I said. But you can learn from it. He reached out, then stopped himself. Is there any chance, he asked softly, that you'll change your mind? I looked at him with steady eyes. That depends, I said, on what you do after today. His shoulders slumped. The meeting ended quietly. Outside, my son followed me to the sidewalk. I didn't know losing control would feel like this, he said. I nodded. Now you understand how I felt. He wiped his face. I don't want to lose you. I placed a hand on his arm. Then don't, I said. But love is not ownership. He nodded slowly. As I walked away, I felt something strange. Not victory. Not revenge. Relief. But I also knew something else. This was not the end. I walked home alone. Not because my son did not offer to follow me. Not because his wife did not ask if I needed anything. But because, for the first time in my life, I wanted to walk by myself. The sun was warm on my back. The road felt familiar. Every step reminded me that I was still here. Still breathing. Still choosing. When I reached my house, I stood at the door for a long moment before going inside. This small house had seen my tears, my prayers, my sacrifices, and my silence. It had also seen my strength, even when I didn't know I had any left. Inside, I sat down and let the quiet settle. My phone buzzed. A message from my son. Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what my words would cost me. I read it slowly. Then I placed the phone down. Sorry is a powerful word. But only when it is followed by change. That evening, my son came back alone. He did not knock loudly this time. Just a soft knock. I opened the door. He stood there with his head lowered, like a child again. Can I come in? He asked. Yes, I replied. We sat across from each other, the same way we had so many times before. But this time, there was no anger. No fear. Just honesty. I was wrong, he said. I spoke from fear, not love. I listened. I thought being honest meant protecting myself, he continued. I didn't realize I was pushing you away. I nodded slowly. When you told me not to expect care in old age, I said, it felt like you erased everything I gave. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to, he whispered. I know, I said. But meaning doesn't erase impact. He wiped his face. I don't want a future where you feel alone, he said. Even if I can't be everything. I want to be something. I looked at him carefully. This is where people get confused, I said. I didn't make my decision to punish you. Then why? He asked. So I would never again beg to be valued, I replied. Silence filled the room. Then I continued. I secured my future so love could be a choice again. Not a duty. Not a transaction. He nodded slowly. I understand now, he said. I reached across the table and took his hand. I did not cut you out of my life, I said. I removed fear from it. He squeezed my hand gently. I want to earn my place back, he said. You don't earn love, I replied. You protect it. We sat together for a long time. Then I told him the truth. I did not leave you with nothing, I said. I left you with a lesson. He looked up. A lesson that says love spoken carelessly can cost more than money, I continued. And love shown consistently is worth more than inheritance. He nodded, tears falling freely now. I will do better, he said. I hope so, I replied. For your children. For your wife. And for yourself. That night, after he left, I slept peacefully. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest. Weeks passed. My son called more often. He visited without being asked. He listened more than he spoke. And I watched. Not with suspicion, but with calm. Because this time, I was not afraid of being abandoned. I had already chosen myself. And that changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more powerful, emotional stories like this one. Tell me in the comments. Do parents owe their children everything? Or do children owe their parents dignity? And remember this. Love given freely is a gift. Love demanded is a debt. And no mother should grow old begging to be remembered. Thank you for listening.